To install the motherboard into our case, we first have to position the risers. The risers are designed to raise the motherboard off the back of the case to prevent an electrical short. The risers are screwed into positions around the back of the case to match up with screw holes on the motherboard. The risers have screw holes in them to allow another screw to go through the motherboard's holes and secure the motherboard to the case. Some cases come with risers that clip into place, and other cases have risers that are built in. The best way to find the positions for the risers in the case is to hold the motherboard in place and look for holes in the case that correspond to holes in the motherboard. Be sure to put risers wherever a screw can go through a hole in the motherboard. It's important not to add unneeded risers, because any risers that don't correspond to a hole in the motherboard will make contact with the circuits on the back and short out the board. Once the risers are in place, we need to install the faceplate for the motherboard's external connectors on the back of the case. The faceplate is included with the motherboard. You may have to remove part of the plate with your screwdriver if it covers the connectors on the motherboard. The case will usually come with a generic plate you have to remove. Press the edges of the plate from the outside of the case, and it will pop out. Then slide the faceplate that came with the motherboard into place from the inside of the case. Press around its edges, and it will snap in. To attach the motherboard, insert it into position and move it to the back of the case, so the external connectors are sticking out the back. You should see the risers through the holes in the motherboard. Put the first screw in the top left hole, but leave it a little loose. This will hold the motherboard in place and still allow you to move it slightly in order to add the remaining screws. Add the next screw at the bottom right of the motherboard and leave it loose as well. The rest of the screws can go in any order. Once all the screws are in, push the motherboard towards the back of the case and tighten down all the screws. If you have an AMD CPU, you have already installed the cooler onto the motherboard, following the instructions in Lesson 2. If you have an Intel CPU, to install the cooler, set the case on its side so the motherboard is lying flat. Never, under any circumstances, power the computer on without the cooler attached. The CPU will overheat in a matter of seconds and will fry. The cooler attaches to the motherboard using 4 fasteners at the corners. Before attaching the cooler, make sure it has some thermal compound on the bottom. The thermal compound is used to create a good seal between the CPU and the cooler. Some coolers come with compound you have to apply to the CPU. Only a small drop is needed. To attach the cooler, rotate it so the fan's power cable is closest to the CPU fan connector on the motherboard. Lower the cooler into the socket, matching up the 4 fasteners on the cooler with the 4 holes on the motherboard. Make sure the tips of the fasteners are started in the holes of the motherboard. Push down 2 of the fasteners at opposite corners, and you'll hear them snap in. Then push down on the other 2 fasteners at the same time to secure the cooler to the motherboard. The cooler is now attached, and we need to connect the fan's power cable to the CPU fan connector on the motherboard. The last step in installing the motherboard is to connect the cables from the front of the case. On this case, there are separate cables for power and reset buttons and a hard drive LED which attach to pins on the motherboard. We could connect them directly to the motherboard, but this Asus motherboard came with a Q connector. The Q connector lets you plug in all of the cables into it. Then you plug the Q connector into the pins on the motherboard. If you have a motherboard from a different manufacturer, check the motherboard's manual to locate and identify the pins. Connect the cables with the names facing the top of the motherboard. This will ensure, in most cases, that they are attached in the correct direction. If it turns out that a button or light on the front of the case doesn't work, make sure the cable is connected to the right pins and try flipping it over. Most cases also have ports on the front panel for audio in and out, USB, and FireWire. FireWire is also called 1394. The audio cables from the front panel connect to an AAFP header on the motherboard. The connector has one missing pin and will only go in one way. We're installing an add-on sound card in Lesson 8, so we will wait to install the audio cable. The USB and FireWire cables from the front panel will go into colored headers on the motherboard. The USB headers are usually blue and the FireWire red. Be sure to check your motherboard's manual to identify the USB and FireWire headers. The connectors are pinned the same, so it's possible to plug a FireWire cable into a USB header. If you do, the motherboard will be damaged. We'll plug the FireWire cable into the red FireWire header and plug the USB cable into the blue USB header. Some cases will also have a loose grounding cable. If your case does, remove a screw that holds the motherboard, attach the grounding cable, and tighten down the screw. That's it. The motherboard is installed. In the next lesson, we'll install the cooling fans into the case.